Good morning, Saints. Well, I'm going to start with this little news item here, but I just wanted to touch on what's going on with NATO and Russia's border, given all this stuff that we've been talking about with Turkey. Things are just plain getting interesting. So I was looking at the news today. Now, I found a link to this Washington Times article. Vermont doctors push back against assisted suicide requirement. And here you can see that they're doing a press interview. Now you got to look at this close because you would think that this would be maybe a Vermont doctor or something. Well, it's not. This is George Amy, president of the assisted suicide advocacy group Death with Dignity, which helped draft Act 39, calling lawsuits baseless and frivolous. And so this is the guy that drafted the law or statute, I'm not sure how that's implemented there in Vermont, that allowed the assisted suicide that the doctors are pushing back against. And I just want to point this out. It's probably obvious now, but you can see, the symbol from the back of the dollar bill with the all-seeing eye and the whole shooting match. And I just personally think you don't stage a press conferencey kind of thing, as you can see here, being careful that the logo is right over your shoulder unless it was intended, so you can just say, well, the group Death with Dignity, what's behind them? It's Lucifer. So I'll just let that go. But I saw it this morning, and I'm like, oh, come on, Here's the real deal, though. Zero Hedge. I know people have done a couple of videos on this already this morning, but in case you missed it, this Paul Craig Roberts at Zero Hedge, he does a lot of interesting articles. I mean, it's not every day, but boy, when he gets one, it's a good one. So he's warning that Armageddon approaches after the German leak, and the leak here was this report that was supposedly issued on June 6th, and you can see in the German economic news, the German government is preparing to go to war with Russia and has a draft form. Now, that people are sort of skipping over that in some of the other updates I've seen, but it's a draft form of the Bundeswehr report declaring Russia to be an enemy nation. But there's already pushback in Russia. I'll leave the link down below. But the pushback coming from Russia is saying, basically, are you guys insane? You're going to start World War III. And this outspoken Russian person is actually talking about, that the response to all the buildup on the border would be put down rapidly. He's implying a nuclear strike, kind of, if you read between the lines here. And so this is really, so if you let's combine the things that we've seen in the last week here. You've got the failed coup in Turkey. You got now Turkey blaming the U.S. for staging it, including the imam that is here that supposedly orchestrated the thing. So you see a separation, even though Turkey's in NATO, you see an apparent separation of Turkey from the U.S., which sets a lot of the NATO policy. You see now according to this article, you see the U.S. orchestrating Germany to prepare this report to declare Russia an enemy state. And then as we were looking at the fallout from the coup, the collapse of power around Erdogan, and then he's now scheduled to meet with Putin, and there was reports out of TASS news. I don't know if I brought that up in a video. If you go into TASS News, it's only a day or two old, I think. Uh, Russia commending Turkey for its partnership that's developing with them and Iran. So wow, I mean, if you think about the Ezekiel 38-39 war, and again, I'm aware of people that think Turkey is the hub of that prophecy. I personally think it's Russia in alliance with Iran. But yes, Turkey, and then Ethiopia, Libya, all the ones that are listed there coming against Israel. And so, a bunch of significant things had to happen to Turkey. Turkey had to leave its alignment from NATO and join Russia and Iran. And, stunningly, even though Turkey just months ago shot down the Russian jet, that alliance, that alignment has happened. And unfortunately, it looks like from that same prophecy, something very bad happens to Tarshish and the young lions, which would imply England, the U.S., Canada, potentially Australia, the young lions, because we're just in protest, as well as Sheba and Dedan, which is Saudi Arabia and possibly Yemen. And all of those things appear probable at this point. Iran is arch enemies with Saudi Arabia because they're on different sides of that Sunni-Shia rift, and they've been building up their nuclear weapons as a hedge against the other. Syria is the battleground between those two, with Iran already having troops in Syria, and then many people suspect Saudi Arabia having a huge hand in bolstering ISIS in the region. So you can see, why would Saudi Arabia, the US, England, whatever, sit out of this big war? Well, there's, room for, let's put it that way, a strike or something that would stop the US from participating, potentially stop, some of the other young lions, our British founded nations that are in alignment with us from participating. And then you saw Turkey peeling back now and forming alliance with Russia and with Iran. It seems very biblical, saints, and so I just thought, got to keep your eye on this thing here. So we've got NATO pushing at the doorstep here, and it has been. I can't remember how many times I've mentioned this in videos of us it's incremental. We keep putting more and more troops. 400 there, 1,000 there, 2,000 here, tanks, into one of these Baltic states, Poland closing its borders essentially, and a report issued yesterday warning Poland that Russia could attack overnight and conquer Poland. I should have brought that article up, but you can see a rationale while in what's going on in the South China Sea with China, and then in the disputed regions of the South China Sea with Japan. You could really see a heavy strike coming against the NATO allies, America in particular, possibly Saudi Arabia in this scenario. And if it was a preemptive strike, which is what's being threatened here in this article, I don't know if I can bring it up quick enough. It was threatened in this article that what would make sense is a preemptive strike by Russia. If it was a preemptive strike, could that be the reason why all of the U.S. aligned countries that I mentioned are sitting out from the Gog-Magog war. So I'll leave the links below, Saints. It's pretty stunning. God bless.